in the African American communities of New Orleans. Jazz came up as a result of World War I and many African Americans. Jazz artists moved to big cities to share their music, and it became more diverse in different cities because they all had different styles and variations of this genre of singing and dancing. It transformed popular music because it was played in speakeasies, because there were dances involved, and it stood for rebellion against traditional culture and style. During the Great Migration, jazz musicians migrated from New Orleans to Chicago and New York. About 6 million African Americans got relocated from the South to the North, where they all shared their style of jazz.
Such cities as Kansas, Memphis, and New York City, and it became the most popular music for dancing. Nightclubs and restaurants soon began to hire jazz musicians. African Americans began to build a new place for themselves in northern cities, actively confronting racial prejudice as well as economic, political, and social challenges to create a black urban culture. Jazz is an example of what they brought to the table. Who were Duke Ellington, Louis Armstrong, and Cab Calloway, and what did they contribute to the jazz age? Duke Ellington. He's one of the most famous jazz musicians. He's most famous for his hit song, It Don't Mean a Thing. Not only a great musician, but a person who fought for racial equality. He transformed America's cultural and racial perspectives. He never performed at segregated venues, and he did not use force, so he fought justice through his music, which celebrates the black culture. Louis Armstrong, or Pops, grew up in a tough environment. His mother was a prostitute, and both were very poor. Living in New Orleans, he was influenced to love and listen to jazz. He soon fell in love and became a star of his own. He became famous for his astounding sense of rhythm and his ability to improvise. Armstrong made a personal expression a key part of jazz. After 2 years in Chicago, in 1924, he joined Fletcher Henderson's band, then the most important big jazz band in New York City. Cab Calloway. He rejected his family's middle-class values because he wanted to live life out to the fullest on the streets. He was the most inspired by his professional success of his older sister. Calloway eventually focused on show business. In little time, he became a talented drummer, saxophonist, and singer. He formed another important jazz orchestra, which played at Harlem's Savoy Ballroom and the Cotton Club, which are two very popular venues.
Bessie Smith was born in Chattanooga, Tennessee on April 15, 1894. She began to sing at a young age and in 1923 signed a contract with Columbia Records. Soon she was among the highest paid black performers of her time with hits like Downhearted Blues. By the end of the 1920s, however, her popularity had lessened, though she continued to perform and made new recordings at the start of the swing era. Her comeback in life was cut short when she died on September 26, 1937, from injuries sustained in an automobile accident outside of Clarksdale, Mississippi. Bessie Smith was honored to be named the finest blues singer of her generation, in a time when women didn't get praise. Her photograph records are an enduring monument to her art. Companists include many pioneer jazzmen, wrote many important blues songs, including Backwater Blues, Jailhouse Blues, Reckless Blues, and Young Woman Blues. Featured in many touring shows, including Happy Times 1930, Broadway Revue 1931, Fanways 1934, Hot from Harlem 1934, League of Rhythm 1936, appeared in St. Louis Blues directed by Dudley Murphy, and featured James P. Johnson on piano 1929.